Well, welcome back to the channel, everyone. We finally got a chance to get out and look at an old mine. Now, this is a mine that I've looked at briefly before on my way to another mine. Last year, I went and stopped and looked at the old mill site where I think the mill site was and found some really interesting pieces of quartz specimen that had some free gold in it. So I'm coming back up here today to snoop around some more, take a harder look at this mine and see if we can find some decent specimens and see a little bit more about what this mine is about. Now, we decided to come up and go camping this weekend, and we're fairly close to this old mine, so I thought I would run over real quick while we're up here camping and just take a couple hours and I'd do a little exploration on this mine. I found out some more articles, or found some more documents on this old mine. One, it had a tram on it that I wasn't aware of. I might have mentioned it in the earlier video, I don't remember, that it had a tram, but the type of tram I was thinking it had was like an old overhead bucket line, or a bucket tram. Pretty common in a lot of these old mines around here. They only hauled maybe a half ton up to possibly a ton of ore in those carts or those buckets. This one, I found a picture and I looked at it a little closer than I did originally. I think I just I may have seen this picture one other time, but I found a document that you could actually look closely at what they had going on here. And this thing was actually on, looked like fairly decent sized ore carts, and it was a rail tram that ran down over the hill. So evidently they built a raised bed and with a winch system and rolled those cars down to where the mill site was. Now, down where the old, the mill was, in later years they put a 10 stamp mill there, but I also found a document that shows there used to be an old arasta there. Unfortunately, where I think the arasta was, has been covered up with a road. I think when they expanded the road for logging, that probably covered up that old site where the arasta was, I think. We're going to explore the top end of this, and if I don't feel like hiking clear down to the bottom of this, it looks fairly steep off of here, I may hop back on the bike and go back down. So, by the way, this bike for doing this kind of exploration where it's a lot of road mile, well, a decent amount of road miles, and then a little off-road, works really good for that. For just pure off-road bike, I'll do a video about it. I don't think I would choose this particular bike for it, but anyway, let's get to exploring. So as I'm walking my way in here to these adits, the one thing I want to point out is the geology in here is really diverse. Right here we've got limestone, and there's a limestone outcropping that runs right up this hillside, and my bike's parked over there. So this is all limestone right through here. Right above the limestone, up here on this hillside, is a thick layer of basalt. So above here, this is pretty much capped with basalt. We've got limestone over here. And then over here, we've got a whole mix of different rocks where the mine was. So let's walk over there. Now we're coming up to, you can see the tailing pile, or the waste rock pile from this adit here. I'm hoping we'll find evidence somewhere around here of that building, that big ore bin and crusher setup. Last time I was up here, I wasn't looking for anything like that. See, there's a pretty good waste rock pile above me up here. Now, I've not been able to find much for maps of the old mine workings on this mine. There's very little written about this mine. But if those ore samples that I picked up down by the mill site was any indication, it looked like it must have been fairly rich. And free gold anyway. We'll walk around here and see if we can't find some samples. Yeah, that one might be worth hauling back. These don't look nearly as mineralized as the ones I found down by the mill site. I'll make a pile of them here. And when I come back by here, I'll pick them up. Okay, we're up on top of this waste rock pile, and most of this came, the road's actually right there. And I drove right past this little trail that comes down Used to be a road. So I'm going to grab my bike and go down in there on that road and save me some hiking. But these piles here look like they came from an adit that used to be over there, and it's collapsed in now. And I'm not seeing a whole lot. There's some quartz here and there, but not a tremendous amount. We're standing right on top of an adit that went in underneath of us right here. Evidently this vein runs pretty much down this slope, and they just poked in adit after adit following it. If I remember right, the one little report I found said there was actually 2 veins here they actively worked. They kind of paralleled each other. Well, let's wander back to where the bike is, and then we'll continue this adventure somewhere down there. Okay, so we've made it quite a ways down the hillside on the bike. We were way up on the hillside here. Made it down into some area I had not been to yet. And there's lots of nice looking quartz laying around. I'm going to go through and find some decent looking samples that look fairly mineralized and take those back with me. There's just a lot of it laying around down in here. And a lot of it is just bull quartz. There's really not a lot of mineralization in it. But some of it, there's some pyrites mixed in with it. I found a piece over that way that had quite a bit of limonite mixed in with it. This one's got a little bit mixed in right there. So we'll go through and find some decent samples, take back, and we'll crush those. But I'm going to explore this little area down in here. Now, this pile here, there was obviously some kind of wood structure right here. There's a little adit, or what was left of an adit there. And they put this pile out here, and I think down below me I see some more. So we'll go investigate those in a minute. I think I see a couple around this hillside. So they dug all kinds of little holes up here. None of them down in here look very substantial, but at least I'm far enough down in here now. I can hear the creek below me now, and I heard a vehicle go by just a few minutes ago. But this is, I don't want to get too far off down in there with my bike. I don't know if I can come back up out of there. That's pretty dang steep down in there. But let's go look at what was left of this adit. Now, one thing really interesting here is that material over there looks chiefly to be argillite. A little bit of limestone mixed in it, surprisingly enough. Over here, though, a lot of this, it's a kind of a mix. It's a little bit of argillite mixed in with quite a bit of basalt. Right up on top of this hill where I come down, that's all basalt up there. So evidently they were right on the edge of where the basalt and the old country rock met, is where they were digging this. Yeah, when I drove by, I thought these would probably be collapsed in, and sure enough they are. See if we can, in the wall rock, pick up any vein. Sure don't see anything. No sign of the vein they were following. It might be directly back there. There's a huge pack rat nest up there. A lot of time where there's a pack rat's nest like that, they've got access to go in somewhere. Oh, there he was right there. Scared the living bejesus right out of me. I was looking up the hillside and looked down and saw movement out of the corner of my eye. Hi, Job. I think he's found him away in that adit right there. Let me go grab a better flashlight. Man, that really got my heart started. I have seen timber rattlers up in this country. When I caught movement out of the corner of my eye, that's the first thing that came to my head was a dang snake. You can tell this little part of the hill, they couldn't, because this is pretty sharp up on top and then it drops off the other side. So these couldn't have went in very far without poking out the other side. If that goes into any workings, it's probably not much of anything in there. And there's also a second one right here, and it's completely collapsed. Let's go look around at what else we can find. As you can see there, this little piece has a fair amount of mineralization in it, so we'll probably take that one. You can see they made lots of little cuts on this hillside. Here's another little pile. I don't think these were actually went underground to speak of. I don't know, well, that one's got a bigger pile than I thought, so that one probably did go underground. Over there's that where the bike's parked. And here's another one. It'd be really nice to find one of these open enough to get in. But with the geology up here, I highly doubt it. I think I might be coming up on the main adit here. That big flat area isn't the main waste rock pile, and this would have been the main adit going back in. The rest of them that we were at earlier are up this hillside. It would have made sense for their main one to be quite a bit lower. Now this down here, this is completely different geology. This is super interesting. This here is decomposed granite right here. This is a lot of the material you'll find over in the Sparta district. All those mines there were in very decomposed granite. It was a secondary intrusion later that put the quartz veins into that old granite. And that's exactly what this material here is decomposed granite. This is getting more interesting the more we go. This has been worked as a placer operation at one time right in here. All this was probably worked with a giant. They did have water coming around here, so it would make sense that they would have mined off the easy placer gold in here. Yeah, this is definitely decomposed granite in spots, and then other spots are getting back into the original country rock, which looks mainly to be argillite. Here's a nice sample of some quartz, but a little bit of mineralization in it, but for the most part that's just bold quartz. I say that I've seen a couple guys break those open and there'll be a streak of gold in it. Unfortunately, I left my hammer back at the bike. I still haven't found any evidence of that big ore bin. I think it would have been somewhere up the hillside here, but see that piece has got some nice mineralization right through the middle of it there. This is kind of like the piece I found down by the mill site. It was even more mineralized that I crushed up and got some gold out of. And this would have been great to have before they hydraulic mined this. This would have been a great spot to have a claim. The pile's got a complete mix. Some quartz, limestone, argillite, basalt. It's got everything mixed in there. Now, if I had the bike down here with my backpack, I would take this out with me. That's got quite a bit of mineralization in it. This would be really good to crush up. I like documenting the historic parts of these mines, but I'm a prospector at heart. Every time I come into spots like this, it just kind of gets me all excited. I got to get up on top of this waste rock pile. Well, that's quite a conglomerate right there. Okay, where we were first looking at tailing piles is way up here on this hillside. This is probably their main adit, I'm guessing. I don't know. There's so many different waste rock piles. Lots of very mineralized material right here. This is where one of the more substantial adits would have been, just judging from the size of the waste rock pile out there. The other ones we looked at earlier are way up this hillside. Definitely collapsed in. If you had a small excavator or decent sized hoe, you could dig this out pretty easy. By hand, boy, you'd be here a while. One of two things this started out is this might have been a crosscut over to the main vein, or these veins followed the contact zone between limestone, argillite, and whatever else is up here, and the veins filled those contact zones, little faults. I think right there, if you look right down in there, that to me looks like an exposed quartz vein. Sure enough, this is a quartz vein going right up through here. Looks like they trenched in on it a little bit. They may have actually put a little bit of an adit right over there, but they plastered it right up into here, right on top of this vein. That's what exposed it. So I'm guessing that bigger tunnel, or that bigger adit entrance was right over there. They probably tunneled in to hit that. Well, let's go back up to the bike. We'll pick up some samples along the way, and I'll meet you up there. So we've made it back up here to the bike. I hiked around some more down there. I wound up bringing up about 30 pounds of samples up, which I left the backpack up here, so carrying 30 pounds up this slope was kind of interesting. That was a terrible mistake to leave the backpack up here. But I found some pretty decent looking samples. The best ones, they were just too big to bring up. I may come back up. If these turn out to have any amount of gold in them, I'm going to be up here again looking for some more samples and some more testing up here. This area is very interesting to me. All the different types of geology we have at play. We've got the Columbia River basalt flows right above us. Over to the other side, we've got a huge outcropping of limestone that comes through here. And then in between here, this area, we've got all kinds of different country rocks. I think I counted at least 5 different type of country rock mixed in up here. I even found some petrified wood down in there, so that was really neat. But the geology up here, I'm kind of a geology nut anyway, and so just seeing all the different types of geology in such a small area has been super interesting to come up and explore. Now, I think this mine, I'm just guessing, was probably started with a placer operation down below, and they followed it up here, and then at some point started doing the hard rock part of it. So what can happen with a mine like this? Because this mine, there's so many different little adits along here and so many different little quartz veins. I've found at least 6 different quartz veins through here that they poked in on. Most of them are sitting at about a 70-degree angle, it looks like, the ones that are exposed anyway. There's 2 of them I found that were exposed, and both of them followed that same trend. And which kind of makes sense. This area is so fractured up with different geology types and mushed together. It doesn't surprise me that there's that many different veins in here. But what can happen on a mine like this is it can be really rich in the draw below, and then they get up here into the hard rock and they just don't do very well. And the reason is, a lot of times the gold is spread out between multiple veins, and as it's eroded, it all goes down into these draws and forms in pockets, and it's all in one spot from several different veins. But each individual vein may not be that rich. That happened a lot over in the Sparta mining district. Those draws were very rich in gold, but they never really found a lot in lode mining, and it's because there's tons of quartz veins up there spread all over. They're very small veins, and they don't contain a ton of value by themselves. But once they all eroded and it kind of congested down into the bottom of draws, it became very rich from all those different veins, but each individual vein isn't all that rich. And that might have been the case with this mine. I'm just not real sure. There's not a lot of geology reports to tell you one way or the other about this mine. But we're going to crush up these samples and see what we find. and see if it's worth coming back and doing a little more exploration. And, you know, maybe we want to file a claim up here. I'm not real sure yet, but this is an interesting area, at least geology wise. So I'm done hiking up here for today. I'm going to head back to camp. I got to save my legs for tomorrow because we're headed up to another old mine. It's quite a little jaunt into it, and there's an old cabin there. We're going to go explore that tomorrow. We may go explore a little ghost town later today, show the in-laws that old ghost town. I think they've been there a long time ago in the past, but we may go explore that today. So I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for watching. I know it wasn't super exciting today, but I really wanted to come back after I found those rocks down here at the old mill site and see what else was up in here. Now, we're not going to get down to there to that mill site today. It's just getting plenty hot today, and there's really nothing to see because I think the road covered most of what was there. So, and I looked around here some more. I did not find where that crushing ore bin start of the tramway thing was. I've got some ideas where it might have been up here, but there's really no evidence left up here. Of course, that thing was over 100 years ago, so it's probably long gone. Thanks for watching, subscribing, giving us a thumbs up once in a while, and we'll see you guys on the next video. They missed it.